There are perhaps few better people placed to predict the future of the internet than Anne-Marie Eklund Löwinder and Serge Droz. Anne-Marie is the Chief Information Security Officer at the Swedish Internet Foundation, and she's one of the 7 key holders of the internet. This is a small group of trustees able to access a last resort measure to reconstruct the internet in the event of calamity, thereby safeguarding the internet's security. Joining her is Serge Droz, a seasoned incident responder and the security lead at ProtonMail, the end-to-end encrypted email service. So join us for a rare fireside chat between individuals who can truly claim a place at the frontier of the World Wide Web as they offer their expert insight to close the 2021 World Ethical Data Forum now.
So hello and welcome everybody to this fireside chat. My name is Anne-Marie Eklund Löwinder. I'm working as the Chief Information Security Officer with the Swedish Internet Foundation. We're running the Swedish top-level domain .se. And by my side, I have Serge Droz. We actually met some time ago when he was in the registry business as well, but he isn't any longer. So Serge, who are you?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Anne-Marie. Yes, it's really good to meet you. So my name is Serge Droz. I'm the head of security at ProtonMail, a Swiss-based privacy-aware email provider. I'm also the chair of FIRST, the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, which is an organization that brings together security people from around the world to make sure that the bad guys have a hard time.
Which is very good. Okay, well, I actually came across ProtonMail some time ago. Some of my security colleagues are actually using it regularly. So tell us a little bit more about it. What is it and what is it doing for us as users?
So on first side, ProtonMail provides a service like many other email providers do. You can sign up for an account and you can start receiving and sending email. But there's a big difference. And the big difference is that we designed our service to respect and kind of insist on privacy. So email sent through our platform cannot be read by anyone, not even ourselves. And we try to make sure that you don't even have to trust us. Well, you have to trust us a little bit, but not very much. We don't monetize your email, so we don't provide you with ads that we place by analyzing the emails that you send and receive, because we really feel what you write in your emails and what you actually do on the internet is your secret and no one else's. And that's a difference to a lot of other email providers who say, your data is your secret and ours. And that's really where we try to differentiate ourselves.
So, okay, but still, what is the business model? You have to make money in one way or another, don't you?
Yes, so the business model really is that we give you a basic service for free, but if you want to have more, like a bigger mailbox or more addresses, you pay a certain amount of money. And that's how we finance ourselves. That's how we actually stay in the black, as we say here. So we are a profitable company. And I think what it means is that you actually pay with cash for the services rather than with your data.
Right, which is a pretty good idea when we talk about privacy. But then again, how do you reach out to new customers? Because if you don't do ads, so what are you doing?
Well, so far we've just grown by kind of word of mouth. People started realizing that that there is something about privacy that's to be had, and we started about 6 years ago, very small, with a couple of people originally from CERN, all physicists, that thought, hey, we need to do something about this. We need to do something about privacy. And it just steadily kept growing from there. Today, we see that privacy is becoming a topic in the mainstream. like for example, when WhatsApp wanted to change its privacy policy to allow connecting WhatsApp accounts to Facebook accounts, people got so upset that Facebook, I think for the first time ever, said, okay, we're not going to introduce this change. So, and I think we are profiting from this growing awareness about privacy, that privacy is something that really is important and is more than just something that a couple of tin hats use.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting because we do Internet Stiftelsen or the Swedish Internet Foundation. We are making an annual survey. Been doing that for more than a decade, and we can see a change in opinion when it comes to if people are concerned by their privacy or not. And the numbers are actually growing quite rapidly the last 5 years. And so the concern is increasing, but not what you might think. I mean, Sweden is fairly democratic. So we can see that they are not concerned about if the government are looking into their information or having their data, but they are very concerned when it comes to big tech companies from the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, which is a new, fairly new concern. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think this is a legitimate concern, and it's not that these companies mean bad. I'm not in this kind of a tech company bashing, but it is a different business case. And I think what would have been a lot better is if these companies had been a lot more transparent about the business case. And the business case there really is, we give you a service for free, supposedly, but you give us your data, and we can then place these advertisements for all the products that we feel are valuable for you. I mean, everybody kind of knows this, that this is what's going to happen. Yeah. But what's really scary is that these companies now amass so much data that it's not only that they know you kind of like to go fishing on the weekend, or you kind of like to go, you like fast cars. They know pretty much everything about your life, because there's so much information that they have. They know what you like, they know what you dislike, they know your secrets, they know the stuff you're not talking about anyone. And that is a scary thought. I don't think these people are just gonna give this information out, but it's still concerning that someone knows this.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have noticed is some of this information, or rather a lot of this information, are not collected by single companies. They all end up with data brokers, which is a few companies which actually have it all, as you say, and know it all. And that is something I don't believe people are aware of. Or what do you think?
I totally agree. There is a kind of this layer below the big tech company whose names we all know. There is this gray to dark gray area of shady companies that that trade in this information, that have no ethics whatsoever. There was this great piece in the New York Times at over the holidays, where they actually got their hands on 1 month of data that they got from a data broker, where they could really pinpoint individuals out. They would know where they live, they could see what their daily routines are. And this is scary because it's completely uncontrolled, and no one knows where this data goes. And
exactly, and what it is used for. And the thing is, what we have learned from the survey we're doing is that people are quite, as you say, quite aware of the fact that, okay, I'm paying with my data for a service that I appreciate, so I don't mind that much. But what really, really makes people upset is when these companies are selling the data without the user's knowledge to a third party, because then it's when you are starting to lose track of your data and what will happen with it and how it will get used. So I think you're completely right saying that the companies need to be more transparent. So what can you think of the most evil usage of the data collected? If you use your fantasy.
At the end of the day, I think if things go really badly, you pay with your life. It's like in most democracies, we kind of have an okay system where authorities know what to do with and what not to do. But as soon as you go into countries where the legal system isn't quite that up to that standards, you can pay for being at the wrong place with your life. I mean, just look right now around all these authoritarian countries, like be it Russia, be it Mexico, be it whatever country you want to. I mean, there's people being killed by being in the wrong place or having talked to the wrong person. So I think this really is a grave danger. And in the US, there's a company called Clearview.ai who scrapes illegally, by the way, all social media platforms for pictures and offers its services to law enforcement agencies. Feedback from law enforcement agents is that this works a lot better than the official databases. They use modern technology, kind of face recognition technology, to immediately identify you. And I don't think that's the way we want our society to be run. It's a surveillance society, and that I don't think leads to more freedom. It may help us arrest a couple of criminals, but the price we pay is hefty.
Yeah, I agree. I really, really agree to that. And I was thinking about something. Yeah, we have now the most recent example is Myanmar, for instance, and Belarus, as you say. So yeah, that's a danger, of course. But what can we do about it? As a user? What can I do trying to protect my privacy?
I think as a user, it's really very important that you start gaining ownership of your data back. You need to start thinking about what information do I give out? And you do this in your everyday, in your physical life too. You're not walking up to a total stranger and showing a picture of you being drunk, lying in some kind of shrub or whatever it is. So the same thinking needs to actually be applied in the virtual world, in the internet. And I think one of the reasons we're so happily giving out this information is because it's very hard for us to conceive what it means, to understand what it means, to see how it travels. And I think as the individual user, it's really very, very hard because these services are really cool. I enjoy these services. I think something like Google Maps is great. I used to get lost in other cities, and now I don't get lost anymore. But the price is that Google knows where I go. And so I don't think we can just have citizens or individuals solve this problem. I think the solution also needs to be that tech companies start building privacy-aware or privacy-respecting products. For me,
and one thing that sorry, yeah.
Yeah, for me as the end user, actually, this really means that I may have to pay a little money for the service I get, but I think that's a good investment.
Yeah, and as you say, as a user, I mean, you consider the information to be quite harmless, but if you try to look at it from the other perspective, as you say, getting it all together and making the picture grow about persons and individuals and their interests or their preferences in different areas, suddenly you end up with something that may harm you as a person. One of the latest quite scary methods that criminals use today is to attack companies that are working within healthcare, and they are stealing the data, but they are not using it to ransom the company, but the company's clients. So we have seen a number of examples of this where, for instance, plastic surgeries have been revealed, or for instance, the worst case was in Finland, the therapist company that lost all the data, all the transcriptions of the talks they had with their clients, and now it's used to ransom these people, which is absolutely terrible. What do you think?
Well, this is indeed a growing concern. I mean, what COVID has really kind of accelerated is the theft of data and the visibility of the healthcare system within the cyber underground. And I find this very, very concerning. I find this concerning for several reasons. I mean, we all know that criminals don't have an honor, so I wouldn't expect any better from them. But what concerns me a lot is that some of these criminal gangs that engage in these type of privacy violations, and let's not forget, even though it is cyber, crime is very physical. It harms people at the end of the day. But this is happening at a scale where we talk about profits in the hundreds of millions. And there was one ransomware gang that gave a public interview saying their profits was $100 million in 1 year. And this makes me wonder, how do you launder $100 million? You cannot launder this without a government kind of closing two eyes. And I find this very, very concerning. If we have nation states that tolerate this for a short-term gain or for cash, then we really have a problem.
Yeah.
Because what the internet changed is that it made us all neighbors. We don't just have 2 or 3 countries neighboring us. We now have 250 plus countries that are neighboring us.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Maybe that is the way to go, to follow the money from the legal side to get to the criminals and their networks. I mean, as you say, they have no honor, and there are also companies. I mentioned a company in my presentation whose ethical compass seems to be needing some calibration. And as you say, this honeypot is far too sweet to let go. I mean, they can make a lot of money. I can't even express myself how much money they can make on doing this. So that is also how can we try to prevent that companies with a poor ethical compass are going right down the rabbit hole in chase of the last buck? Can we prevent that?
That's a very good question. I think one of the big challenges is that all the big tech companies, or a lot of the tech stuff, is multinational. It's not in one country anymore. And I think our state community, states are not really sure how they should react to this. And on one hand, they probably feel we should crack down on this, and they could easily do this by passing respective legislation. But on the other hand, there's always, for states, certain incentives to let these things kind of grow and remain gray because they have a short-term profit. I do think that states need to start understanding how the internet works and what danger this poses to the stability and the peace of society. And I think they're not really taking this serious enough. States also don't really see that the internet provides an asymmetry that we didn't have before. Like kind of 50 years ago, states would be dealing with states, and within the states, you had the criminals who would be dealing with the police, but that's not the case anymore. Today, we see individuals attacking states, and we see states attacking individuals, and that's never been here before, and we don't have answers to that.
I have a fear sometimes that now the different countries and the European Union, for instance, are now reacting by regulating. So we have the Network and Information Security Directive coming up with number 2 shortly. We have the Data Services Act. We have Cybersecurity Act. We have GDPR. We have, I mean, there's just stapling legislations on top of each other. Isn't there a risk that we lose ourselves in all this?
That's really a good question. I think the art or the challenge here is to create good legislation. I actually think GDPR did a lot of good. I think GDPR is a pretty good law because it actually forced a lot of companies to take measures. I also think that the new upcoming NIS directive in terms of security is going into the right direction, in the sense that it changed wording from security people could do something to security people actually should be doing something. And I do feel that good security is actually, at the end of the day, improving privacy, because bad security means bad people get access to private information. So yes, I do think this is the right way to go.
But you say security people. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the management or the board who is responsible of what happened within an organization. It's not specifically a security person who is responsible. I mean, it could be that they don't have the financing, the resources to do the best job they would like to do, and then again they become responsible for this.
Well, I think what a lot of management is afraid is that they run a risk of a reputation risk by doing something, a legal risk by doing something. I hear a lot of discussions in private companies where people say, we could do a lot more, but we fear the legal risks of doing the right thing. And that, I feel is a big concern. And when you go back down to what can states do in their local or national legislation, it really is to make sure that the people can actually get their jobs and not being punished for it.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a kind of a balance that we have to figure out how to manage. I mean, private companies can always do their risk analysis and business analysis and see whether they can spend the money on this or not, whereas governmental agencies or municipalities or whatever, they have almost only their reputation to protect, which is, yeah, it's important, but people tend to forget quite quickly when something bad happens. I mean, there's a lot of fuss, a couple of weeks, and then the dust lays on the ground again.
Yes, and I think the problem is that we don't, as an individual, we don't have an immediate disadvantage if our information is leaked. It's maybe a nuisance, but we have to change the password. But what we forget is that by losing our privacy, we change the way society works. It's how we live together. If all of a sudden everything is public, you always have to fear that suddenly your secrets get out, your lives get out, and your lives are marketed and they're sold, and that's what these people do. I mean, all these organizations that collect so much data, and that brings us back to the beginning of the company. They don't do this because they just enjoy having big hard drives full of your personal data. They do this because they want to make money out of this. Now, there's nothing wrong with making money, and that's what these companies are here for. They're here to make money, but maybe they don't carry the full costs. And I think the full costs of losing privacy is really that we as a society start losing something really fundamental. And I do think our private lives are something very, very fundamental that should enjoy special protection. Privacy is guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of the Human Rights. It's not something that is just a nice to have. It is one of the basic principles. And
that's interesting. Yeah. Sorry.
So if we are not careful, we're actually giving up on some of our really basic principles.
Yeah, that's true. But how do you make people more aware, knowledgeable, to be able to cope with the risk? I mean, what would the future be for instance, ProtonMail?
So our hope, of course, is that we can move into a market where people are aware that privacy is not just for free, and that protecting their personal lives is something they have to spend a little money for or pay with something that's not their personal data. And I think the challenge to industry and to states is that they create environments where privacy or preserving privacy is actually honored and makes a good business case, whereas our models today actually are so that companies that violate privacy are awarded, like the whole ecosystem today in creating apps and creating internet applications. You make a lot more money if you ignore privacy, and that needs to change.
Yeah.
And I don't really think this is like the individual car driver should not be responsible for having a safe car. It's the car manufacturers that need to make sure the cars are safe. That still doesn't prevent you from driving safely, but you shouldn't have to worry about your car not breaking down in the middle of the road or the brakes not breaking down. And I think that same understanding needs to come into the tech industry, where the certain basics need to be provided by the industry and not the end user.
Well, yeah, that's correct. And that is something that I actually appreciate with GDPR, is that the rule about security by design or security by default forces you to document how you were thinking when you choose the solution you did choose, in order to, you know, I mean, everybody can do mistakes, but if you are forced to document how you were thinking about privacy when you designed your system or your service, it might be right or wrong, then at least you have this thread that you can follow backwards and say, okay, here's where we went wrong. Now we have to adjust that. But do you think people are that good on documenting their systems and procedures?
Well, we're pretty good in many of the respects. It's like in many of the aspects of developing products and services, we can do this. Like most of the physical stuff we build is quite safe, unless we buy from the cheapest bidder from some completely strange place on the planet. I mean, most of the stuff we buy is safe. We manage to have safe drops for most of the parts. Things still go wrong, but they're very, very low. And in the IT and computing industry, we're not really very, very good. But you can change this. It's Microsoft still has the reputation of being a really super unsafe operating system, but that's actually not true. It is quite a safe operating system. And that changed once Microsoft realized, hey, we have a problem and we have to change the way we develop this. And they started inventing what's today called the secure software development lifecycle, which is a comprehensive program that tries to make sure software is more secure. And it is orders of magnitude more secure. And so the same thing needs to happen with privacy. If we start thinking about how can we design privacy of our products, and then we will find these answers. We'll still make the mistakes, but that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I mean, mistakes is what actually leads development further forward. So I think it's important to be able to, because if we find ourselves in the situation that if we don't change anything, nothing can went wrong or go wrong, and then nothing will happen. We don't have any improvements or development, so that would be really bad. Well, I think that is an interesting thought. I just recalled I had a detailed question with ProtonMail. Can you use your own domain?
Yes, you can.
Very good, because I think there is a lot of people who are interested in using their own.
So our goal really is not to be just an email provider. Our goal is really to kind of provide all these really cool services that we get, and there are cool services, but in a privacy respecting manner. And clearly having your own domain for a lot of people is an important thing, and that is something that you can do since quite a while with ProtonMail. That is one of the paid services. And but at the same time, we feel we want to have a basic service that's available for free to everyone, because we feel basic privacy respecting communication is something that really is a fundamental right and is absolutely needed in the internet.
So how about filtering? Is that something that you offer as well? I mean, now filtering from spam or...
Of course, we do spam filtering. We do all of these things. We do spam filtering for the mail that's coming from outside the ProtonMail ecosystem. If you mail within the ProtonMail ecosystem, we can't read you mails, so it's a lot harder to do spam filtering.
Yeah, of course.
But we still try to analyze patterns. If people, I mean, spammers have certain patterns that we try to identify, and I feel this is a very important message. Privacy doesn't mean anything goes. Privacy means that third parties don't read your data. It doesn't give you kind of a carte blanche to commit crimes, to commit fraud, to abuse other people. And we take a very strong stance on people abusing our platform. And obviously, one group of people in our society that always appreciated privacy are criminals. And so we tend to get our fair share of criminal users, and we take a really tough stand on that. We don't want to have these people as customers.
Because that must be a problem as well, because as you say, the sun shines on both evil and good. And so how do you manage?
So we do have an abuse team that's very capable, and we react to reports from third parties. We investigate these reports. We depend on people giving us evidence. So we're not just going to go in there and disable an account without any evidence. But if we get the evidence, we take action. And what we try to come up with is really a privacy-preserving abuse handling. Of course, it's harder than for organizations where you can just read the emails, but there is other ways you can do this. And we talked about this in the beginning, that the mass of information you have available allows you to draw conclusions. And that's the same thing for abusers. So abusers follow certain patterns that can be recognized that we try to act on.
Very good then. Well, that leaves to time for us to wrap up. It was absolutely lovely to talk to you again, Serge, and a very interesting service that you have there. So good luck for the future with your very good work.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And I do hope we manage to meet in person and stroll down the streets of Stockholm again at some stage.
Let's hope for that. Thank you very much, Serge. Bye-bye, so long.
Bye-bye.